Seymour, and today I'm going to review a thing. What is it with remakes? Why are we remaking movies? This is not a new thing that has been happening in films, but recently I've been noticing that there are a lot more remakes of original content, especially in the Disney company. This didn't strike me until I saw the live-action Beauty and the Beast teaser trailer that's expected to come out somewhere next year. And I mean, that's fine and everything. There have been classic Disney movies that have already been remade. We recently got The Jungle Book. There was a live-action Cinderella that came out last year. And there are 2 live-action Alice in Wonderland movies. I mean, that's all fine and everything, but then I started getting a little suspicious and I dug deeper into this well of future Disney films, and there are a lot of future remakes coming in the near future. A bunch of old classic animated Disney films are on a list to be remade into live-action remakes of the story. I mean, on the list they got Aladdin, Mulan, Dumbo, Winnie the Pooh, which isn't really gonna be much of live action, most likely just all gonna be CGI. We got Pinocchio, The Little Mermaid, Fantasia, there's a Tinkerbell movie, there's even a Chip and Dale movie. So there are a lot of old classic Disney films that are being remade, and I don't understand it, but Disney is not the only one that's in fault of remaking films. I mean, we have a whole superhero franchise dedicated to remakes. I can't list how many times Batman's been remade. Spider-Man has at least been remade probably like 3 or 2 times. I could be wrong on that, but superhero films are also at a fault of being remade a bunch of times. I mean, even films like Godzilla, which is originally from Japan, has been remade, I don't know, a good like 20 times or something? Maybe like less than that, maybe like 10. But I'm just saying, like, I feel like half of all the movies that come out nowadays are just original, which is fine. I like original stuff, but then like the other half is like all remakes, and why do we have remakes? Okay, so first off, let's get it out of the way. There is a big reason why movies are remade years later. In fact, there are 3 reasons why. The first one is obviously about money. Companies will do anything for money, even if that means remaking the biggest movie out there. And I mean it. If there is a big hit, there is no doubt that a company in the future will remake that movie just so they can get money off of it. Another reason is because sometimes the film will be such a hit that years later they might want to celebrate it by remaking the movies, which I don't see a point to. I mean, if it's a classic, it should stay a classic and shouldn't have an awful remake, even though remakes can go either way, being good or bad. And the last reason is because it's a way to push the story on to a new generation. We will always have those old classic Disney films that came out in the 30s and 40s and 50s and so on. But remakes are a way of telling the story to a new generation with a new cast of people, a new way of doing it, and it's just a way to entertain a new generation. But sometimes remakes aren't good. A remake has a chance of either succeeding or a chance of failing. And no matter if it's a good film that it's coming off of, a remake will always change something and have its problems. I look at remakes as if they were fingerprints. I know it's a stupid comparison, but hear me out. There is no fingerprint that is alike. Everyone has a different fingerprint. That's kind of how remakes are with movies. If the original movie that you're remaking has, say, a scene where a guy punches another guy and the guy breaks his face and bleeds out of his nose a lot, chances are that remake won't do it exactly the same. I mean, it'll definitely attempt to if it's spot on, but somehow it'll be different and not the same from what it's supposed to be resembling from. Though remakes don't just rely on how the story is, it also relies on who's behind it and who's starring in it, which is actually a fact that some of my friends thought of. I always say that actors make the story come to life. They are those characters, and it's their job to tell this story as these people. But if you have an actor that does a horrible job at a role, then it's obviously gonna fail, mostly because of that one actor. You can remake the best movie ever, like, let's say we remade Back to the Future, and we got someone like, I don't know, Charlie Sheen to play Doc Brown. I'm just saying, don't scream. Let's say we got Charlie Sheen to play Doc Brown. Now, I don't know exactly how he would do at that role, but let's say he failed at it. The remake would automatically be ruined. But with this example, it goes to show that some actors aren't fit for a part. Maybe there is an actor that would play this part, but you have to make that choice before you go into the film, and it's a wrong decision that can destroy everything. Remakes also have the fault of adding new material or getting rid of new material, which has been seen in a lot of films that have been remade. A few weeks ago I made a video talking about the live-action Dr. Seuss films that didn't do so well. One of those films was How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which starred Jim Carrey playing the Grinch, who I thought played a pretty good Grinch. Now I know what some of you are gonna say, the Grinch is not a remake because it never had a film. As a matter of fact, there is going to be a CGI remake, and while I do agree there was no film before this, they did technically have a 30-minute television special that aired years before the movie, plus it's a film adapted from a children's book, so I'm counting it. But that particular film was a bit different from its original book and 30-minute television special. But with this movie, they took, like I said, a 30-minute television special and even a children's book that, you know, it's a kid's book, it's not going to be more than 100 pages, and basically made it into this 2.5-hour long film. A film that was based off of a Dr. Seuss book, was made into a 2.5-hour long film. That's because there is a lot more material put into this and also somewhat of a moral that they have to try to get through. There was a lot of new material that was added into this film, specifically because they were trying to get a moral out that Christmas isn't about, you know, the gifts and stuff, it's about family. But they added a lot of things that I don't think was necessary. Like, they explained the one question that I don't think any of us wanted an answer to within the Grinch story. It's said in the beginning that nobody knows the reason why the Grinch hates Christmas. It says it in the book, it says it in the television special, it even kind of says it in this film. They explain it in the movie. They contradict themselves. They say the reason why the Grinch hates Christmas is because he was made fun of in school because he had facial hair. The guy is a green, monsterish creature going to human school. What do you expect? I mean, for God's sake, he's got hair everywhere. That was something this film didn't have to do, but yet it went ahead and did it anyway. I mean, yes, they do technically tell the original story, but not until you get like 2 hours into the movie. I can fast forward all this stuff in the film and go straight to the 2-hour mark to where they actually get to the main point of what the book was based off of. Another example we can use is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That was remade years later by Tim Burton into Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And before we get into the details of it, let me just make a little comment about the names. It's kind of ironic if you think about it. In the first film, it's called Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but yet it kind of focuses a little more on Charlie. And in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, it definitely does focus on Charlie, but it kind of focuses a little more on Willy Wonka. And here's the reason why. So definitely there were changes in this particular film. They made the factory look a bit more factory-ish, and it's not as colorful as it was in the original, but it definitely did look more like a factory. And I should also comment that the Oompa Loompas in this movie were all played by one person instead of the original where it was played by multiple guys, which is pretty cool. But Willy Wonka in the remake that Tim Burton made was a bit weirder. In the original film, he looks like that he doesn't have a care in the world, and it's just his job to show the kids the factory, lose them one by one, and then by the end, just pick a winner to give the factory to. Well, in this film, Willy Wonka goes through some family trauma. Every time he hears the word mom or dad or family or sister or brother or anything to do with a family whatsoever, he goes into like this little mental stage, and we learn later on in the film, and by later on I mean near the end of the film, not the part where he gives Charlie the factory, but after that part, because there's a little part after after that little elevator scene, where we find out that Willy Wonka had a pretty traumatizing childhood. There's also this part that kind of connects with what I just said. At the end of the original, Charlie asks if he could bring all of his family members to the factory now that it's his when he wins it, and Willy Wonka says yes, you could bring whoever you want. But in the new one, Willy Wonka doesn't allow Charlie to bring any of his family members. Charlie doesn't go with the deal because family is more important to him, and then shoe shining, and then Willy Wonka is now living with Charlie and his family in the house that's in the factory, because now they half own it. I'll admit though, that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie, that was pretty good. You know, the songs were pretty catchy and all, but there were just some parts that, you know, make me just look at and just say, hey, you're not original. You're not in the first one. Get out of here. You know, walk out the door and stuff. Both The Grinch and Willy Wonka, and possibly even a whole bunch of other remakes that I just didn't mention, they all have something added to them that, in a way, either will break the movie or make the movie a big hit. I mean, again, I never asked for an explanation of why the Grinch hated Christmas. I never asked for an explanation of what Willy Wonka's past was all about. I feel like those kind of elements somewhat break the film, but these are two films that I like, so I can't really argue. So with all that said, going through everything that I mentioned about remakes on, you know, why they're made because of them being passed on to new generations, and talking about like some negative stuff like how stuff can be added and possibly even destroy it, there's just one question that I still have remaining. How long are remakes going to be made? It was actually the question that made me want to make this video after looking at the list of Disney films that are going to be remade. Because I found it funny that The Jungle Book has been remade multiple times, and yet they've remade it again this past year and are even expected to make a sequel in the future. So, are we just gonna live in a world now where we're gonna have a movie that was remade based off of a remake, based off of another remake and a remake? Is it gonna be a continuing line of remakes that we're gonna start witnessing? At this rate, I wanna say yes. Because, like I already said, remakes are a way to tell the story to another generation, a future generation of kids with stars that they may know, or in a tone that they might understand, unlike the tones and styles of life now, because we're used to them in these kind of films. So, that's what I think about remakes. That's my little discussion about remakes. Now, I want to hear what you guys think. What is your opinion on movies being remade? What is your whole idea about franchises being rebooted with new cast members and a new team behind it? What is your opinion on remakes in general? And if you have a favorite remake of a film, what is your favorite remake? And what was the original film? I don't have one, because I just don't. Do you agree, disagree with anything that I said in this video? Tell me in the comments, and also leave me your suggestions for whatever movie, TV show, or anything you want me to talk about next. Thanks for watching The Wild Review. I'm The Wild Reviewer, and you just saw me review a thing.